Welcome to the show. Hi, I'm Randy Jeffers, and we are live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. I'll tell you, we are in for a treat today. We have with us Mr. Dannion Brinkley, the author of this book, Secrets of the Light, and how many other books?
Three more: Saved by the Light, At Peace in the Light, and the soon-to-be-published 10 Things to Know Before You Go.
Well, I'll tell you, if you don't know of Dannion, probably you already have heard his name, but his first book was made into a movie about your life, and I had a chance to watch that. I think I watched it way back in, when was it? In the 70s?
1995.
Came out in 95,
Yeah.
okay. But in the actual event that it talks about, the big event was in the 70s?
1975, September the 17th at 7:05 p.m. I was hit in the head by a bolt of lightning. It went down my spine. It welded the nails of the heels of my shoes to the floor, threw me in the air, suspended me in the air.
My
Dead for
goodness.
28 minutes, completely paralyzed for 6 days, partially paralyzed for 7 months, 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself. But I discovered a remarkable event, that the concept of what we now believe to be death is never and has never been true. No one ever dies. It never happens. So for all you people who think you're going to die, you might as well get over it. It's never going to happen. What you're going to do is realize that you were chosen to be born at the time you were born, and you chose to be born. It was a choice, duality. Choices were made, and you made a reason. There was a divine reason for you to come here, and then there was something that you decided you wanted to achieve while you were here. And this is just one part of a continuously eternal life.
Now, let me just ask you another question, because you said that you died for 28 minutes. Now, how in the world is that possible?
Well, you got to look at in 1975, if you were dead for 28 minutes, you considered had brain damage.
Yes.
Well, that would probably explain part of my problem. Okay, but they're resuscitating people now, Randy, up to 3 hours.
Oh, they are.
The concept of death as we now know it, because of the advancements in cardiopulmonary resuscitation, are so phenomenal. And our understanding of bio-bodily chemistry, the biogenetic nature of chemistry, then you can resuscitate people. You can regrow limbs. You can resuscitate people. So today, 28 minutes is nothing. Mine just happens to be the remembrance of what we now known by Dr. Raymond Moody, the near-death experience. And I had a near-death experience in the course of it, and I was fortunate and unfortunate enough that when they took me to the hospital, Dr. Raymond Moody, who coined the term near-death experience and who is the godfather of this phenomena, he was going to medical school at the same time. Guy died, dead for 28 minutes, resuscitated in the hospital. Raymond got curious, and we became close friends.
My goodness. What was it like? Do you have a remembrance of those 28 minutes?
They never go away. You never have an experience. I grew up basically as a jackass. I was a tough guy. You know, I played sports. I was a fist street fighter. I fought. I served in the Marine Corps, and then I worked for various government agencies, you know, as a contractor. But I never had a
Now,
concept.
is that a contractor like in the movies?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a contractor. They used to have a different name. They called them mercenaries. But now we have a new name for them, contractors.
So we could call it a couple other things as well.
Yeah, but I would
Way
rather,
off.
if I can never get accused of, I can never get tried for certain things that I now know we did that I didn't know were the wrong things at the wrong place at the wrong time. But when you grow up in that mindset, Randy, and your whole concept is about being tough and, you know, getting them before they got you, and then all of a sudden you lift out of your body and you're surrounded by this brilliant love and this sense of safety and wonderment. And then you're watching the world that you left. And the thing that was so startling to me was how disassociating it was. When you lift out of your body, you no more care about where you were in the human form than a gnat. You were not interested. You disassociate, and you get to feel your whole spiritual self again, and you get that dynamic back into place. And so for me, the way I grew up, and I grew up in the deep South, everybody goes to hell in South Carolina.
Sure.
Okay, so
And they deserve it.
yeah, probably so. Okay, and so what I did was I was just astonished by the fact that I didn't see the devil. I didn't have any of those kind of experiences. I experienced a divine presence. There are not words that can describe the world that awaits us. It's not those words. What awaits us is something that no one ever talks about when they talk about religion or they talk about spirituality. This description of good and evil, right and wrong, heaven and hell, sin, and all that stuff. These are quantitative values to place on something that is unknown. An unknown, so you have to have faith and belief in what you're being told as what's next. I'm lucky. I don't have to have faith in anything about what's next. I believe because I have made this journey 3 times in 22 years, struck by lightning, which led to open heart surgery 13 years later, which led to brain surgery 7 years later. So 3 times over a 22-year period, I've experienced what it's like to leave my body, cross the frontier, enter to that place where the common nature of the near-death experience exists, and have this experience. And I think that what's so important about it is you gain a value about who you really are as opposed to who you think you are. And someone says, Daniel, what do you mean by that? Well, when you start to think about who you are, you're a compilation of the best things that you ever thought that anybody ever thought that they would like about you. So who
Wow.
you are is how you socially, psychologically, emotionally feel like you're a part of a group or an organization, and you've constructed yourself to be that, whether it was you or not, so that you fit in. And so to get a chance to see who you really are and to see how special you are to even be born. A hero, the people who make it to the point to be able to enter this plane in service are heroes. They are the best of the best. Only the best, the brightest, and the smartest, and the most dedicated get a chance to live the human life. It's like a reward for being a spiritual being and something you've achieved in some other level of consciousness. You get a chance to come here. So I celebrate every day. You know how I am. Every day's a joy and a celebration to me.
Filled with joy and happiness.
Yeah.
So obviously, I mean, that is a profound thing that happened. And how did it change your life?
It completely changed me. I mean, you come to a certain point when you realize that power and pressure and brutality, no matter how you think in the short term it worked, which was the driver. I mean, I could hit you in the face faster than you could hit me in the face. And I could draw and fire quicker than you. So I had a sense of confidence and a bold, bully, kind of personality. But once I realized that that has nothing to do with greatness. It has nothing to do with who we are. The little things, the pat on the back, the smile, the sense of happiness and the concern about people became to be important. Those little things became to be important to me, not because of what anybody else thought or heaven or hell or any of that, but it was the right thing to do. So I went from a bully, tough guy. I can think of a lot of more words, but we don't want to use them. But think of the most horrible, worst person you know, magnify it times 10, and that's who I was. Today, I'm a hospice volunteer. I decided that there's a place that comes in this experience that comes to this. And I'll use the word God, or divinity. And it comes to this. When you look at your life, and you see your entire life pass before you in a 360-degree panorama, and you watch it from a second-person point of view as if you were your own best friend, so you can see the smart things that you've done and the stupid things that you've done. I had more stupid things than I had smart things in the first one. The second one, I was really good. By the third one, I became I'm knighted because I know better. But when you you see your life from a second-person point of view, and then you literally become every person that you've ever encountered. And you feel the direct results of your interaction between you and them. So first, no one ever gets away with anything. You're going to be every person. Well, I think I decided to quit hitting my own self in the face because I was hitting a lot of people in the face, and I decided not to shoot me anymore. there comes a point in it, Randy, where this is all that really matters. In the life you just reviewed, if God couldn't come today and God sent you, in the life you just reviewed, what difference did you and God make? Or if the divine force or a divine architect could not come today and it sent you, in the life you just reviewed, what difference did you and the divine architect make? So I have designed my life around that. I became interested in that if my part of my job is to be the difference that God makes, where could I make the greatest difference? Well, the greatest difference that I could make from the world I came from was being at the bedside of veterans in transition. I not only know what it's like to be a combat veteran, because I was United States Marine Corps, I know what they're going through. And if you're not a soldier and you've never been in combat, then you really don't have a mindset to understand what they're processing and what they're working through. So if God couldn't come today and God sent me, then as I look at my life, the difference that me and God makes is we're at that bedside, we're holding the hand of that person, we're supporting the family members, and we're making sure they graciously let go. Now, I've been a hospice volunteer for 40 years. I have more than 32,000 hours at the bedside.
Wow.
I've been with 2,011 people going from this world to the next, and 344 taking their last breath. And the last person I was with taking their last breath was Reggie, an 87-year-old World War II veteran, and that was last Sunday. So I find great delight in that, Randy, and all of us need to stop and take a part of our lives and look at it. If you had a chance to be the difference that God makes in a certain situation, what do? Do you get angry? Do you pout? Do you throw a tantrum? No. You look to see what you can do to constructively make it better. And that's just what guides my life.
Now, tell us about, I understand you developed an organization for these veterans that you hold the hands with. Tell us about that and how that works.
Well, what I did was, you can't be at the bedside of everybody.
Right.
And when you look at 700,000 veterans are passing every year, and about 40 are committing suicide every day, I have to be impactful there. Okay, so I created an organization called The Twilight Brigade, twilightbrigade.com, and taking 3 near-death experiences and taking years at being a hospice volunteer. In 1997, I created the Twilight Brigade. It is 20 years old this year. I'm headquartered in the West Los Angeles VA. I operate out of 22 VAs. I have more than 7,000, little over 7,000 people trained who are experts in palliative and end-of-life care. They know what to do, how to act, what questions to ask to help that veteran find resolution. Most of us don't realize that when you're in war, you do things out of anger. And then you realize what you did. And was it right? No. And so we develop PTSD and we develop hypervigilance and we go through a lot of issues. I see these issues, but when a person is preparing to make that journey home, most of them think they're going to go to hell for what they did out of anger when they lost someone in their company. And they know they shot that person or killed that person or they beat that person and they have no rationale. I think it's really important that people remember it's never what you do, it's why you do it that matters. Always pay attention to what your intention is. And you will be a lot smarter and you will have a lot better near-death panoramic life review. So the Twilight Brigade, I'm really proud of it, Randy. I think that it's the mark I want to leave. You know, it's the mark that I want to leave as what my life experience meant. That I'm still at the same end of the gun, except I'm not sending them there. I'm just helping them across. So I'm in the same place I always was. I'm just got a different job description.
Exactly. Well, I want to ask you a couple questions about that, but before we go any further, I know people are going to want to get a hold of you, and how can they do that? You have a website?
Oh yeah, I'm at DannionandCatherine.com. I'm easy to find. That's DANNION. If you punch in my name, you will find Dannion and Catherine. And we have a company, called Heartlight Entertainment, which handles and books us and does all of that stuff. And I'm going to be in Los Angeles at the Conscious Life Expo February the 10th. So if you're listening and you're in the Los Angeles area, please go to, it's at the Hilton Hotel at the airport. It's a really good, Randy, for people who are just getting into the search, because we know 95% of what we hear now is not true. It's fake news, according to Donald. But we have to be able to broaden our breadbasket of information and look at things that we never thought were ever true, to be able to make decisions in this really fast changing world. And this next 6 months will be the most unbelievable time period in American history.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and so we want to live it the best way we know how.
Now, you've written a number of books, and this being one of them, but which one are you most proud of? Which one do you like the best?
I like this one. I like The Secrets of the Light best, because Saved by the Light was the original story when everybody had to be serious. You know, you couldn't crack jokes. And if you've ever seen one of my presentations, I make fun of everything. What are they going to do? Kill me? Well, big deal. And so what I look at is, I think Secret is the best book. I mean, the Saved by the Light, the movie, has been seen in 60 countries by 100 million people. I have no idea how many books, but it's way in the millions of books. So, I mean, it's been pretty impactful. But when you get to the secrets, I took 7 situations that we find ourselves in on a daily basis. And I took the panoramic life review and I framed a way that you could put your problem in one of those 7 incidences, and you could see more clearly what was going on around you. We all have so many things that we react to, or that we're conditioned to react to, instead of having a clear viewpoint and a clear perspective to look at it from. So when you frame it in one of the secrets, your consciousness expands to see more. You see more about the situation. Like, I always use number 5, especially when it's terrible, everything's going wrong. Number 5 is, I choose to be here at this particular place at this particular point in time, because this is that moment I can make the greatest difference. Instead of getting all weird and angry and mad and frustrated, I said, okay, what can I do to help? If I'm here and it's this bad, then there's something I can do to help it. Then I see it's not all about me. It's about everyone else in the situation. And instead of being the tormentor, which I once was, I become the insightful person that tries to help people work out the situation instead of stirring it up. So I think this is my favorite book. The new book, I think the new book is, finally I can make fun of everything. It's called 10 Things to Know Before You Go. And everybody who knows me, when I'm talking, where are you going? Well, everybody knows, if you know me, where you're going. So it opens the book, it says, you turn to the first page, it says, what's the number 1 cause of death in America and most other countries? Big question mark. And you people start thinking about it, and you turn to the next page, and it says, no matter what you thought, birth, birth, is the number 1 cause of death. Then you turn to the next page, it says, remember, if you're breathing, you're leaving, and if you just took a breath, this book is for you. And then I go through 10 things that, and it's Catherine and I, my wife and I write these. But I try to be insightful, because in present day America, baby boomers, 10,000 turn 65 every day. Wow. There were 76 million of us born in America, and green cards and naturalized citizens, we're around 80 million people. 10,000 turn 65 every day. So if you were born between 1940 and 1967, you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Everybody knows somebody in transition. A mother, a grandmother, a father, a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle, a best friend. Well, we have to be able to deal with this transition period. Why? Most people never stop to think, Randy, that the baby boomers, we were the largest expanded growth group in Western history. More children were born between 1940 and 1967 who became baby boomers than any other period in Western history. So we have hundreds of millions of us leaving. So with so many people and so diverse, everybody knows someone, whether it's a celebrity or it's a neighbor or it's a parent. Everybody knows this, and so I just became, because I live in end of life. This is where I live. This is what I do. These are the things I see. I can write about it because I'm on the ground floor. I'm right there where you're listening to them, seek closure, listen to what they're working through, and I can make a difference. So I'm always funny. So 10 things to know before you go. It's like riding a roller coaster. I will get your attention and then I will make you laugh. Because transition is about celebrating life, not dealing with death. A person who's leaving this world needs someone to celebrate their life with them, to ask them the kind of questions that makes them think back through that life and makes them add importance and power to it, and let them see that it was a good thing that they did and celebrate those things. Because then that person smiles, they take that breath and they let go. And what comes next, I'm fortunate enough to know what comes next. So at those critical moments, I can make a difference. And that's what the Twilight Brigade training is about. If you want to handle helping someone you love or someone who has loved you go from this world to the next, you go to the Twilight Brigade. You look it up. You see what area is the closest to where you are. Call that person and come and take the training. I mean, it's a weekend. You take a weekend, you make a commitment that weekend, and when you leave, you will know exactly what to do, when to do, and how to do it. When that person enters that stage, I have 3 people actively in transition. One I go and see because he's local, and 2 are celebrities live in Los Angeles, and they're celebrities, and they don't want people to know it. But somewhere along in life, they find me and they call me, and I walk them through it. So it'll be in the news soon. One of them was really a lot of famed television shows. He's probably been in 5 of the most well watched television shows, and another one is executive producer. But I help them go through it. And if you want to be an expert in transition, because everybody's going to be a hospice volunteer, everybody, sooner or later, if for no one but yourself. But if you were a female and you were born between 1940 and 1967, you will be the primary caregiver for one or more parents. Primary caregiver. And then you have about a 14% about the males. So mostly women, and looking at they are basically the caregiver. And if they need that art form, then the Twilight Brigade is the best training, and it is the only training accepted by the United States Government Veterans Administration that if you take my training, you don't need to take any other government training. That's how good it is. So I'm proud of that.
Now, how many of the veterans that die, how many of them don't have any family members there with them?
I would say about 40%.
40%.
Because you got to look at the periods. We're in World War II. We're down to the last 1.1 million World War II. That was 45 million Americans. Mm-hmm. Then we had Korea. We have about 2.5 million of them. Then we have now Vietnam, which is 13 million people. This is the big driver. Most of the people who've been in combat alienate their families. PTSD, traumatic brain injury, hypervigilance, these kinds of things. And a lot of them are in hospitals that are 1,000 miles from home. So they have no way to get to your family. The family can't get to you, or many have outlived all their family members. So if you could see the loneliness, Randy, that goes on in a CLC, which is called a community living center, the VA does an excellent job. You hear a lot of really bad stuff about the VA. Well, I know all the bad stories, but I know the good ones too. I know the good ones. But if you go and you went with me and spend a day, you would see guys who the only person who comes to visit them is me. And it's sad. And I try to work them to be able to call their loved ones or children that they've alienated themselves from and try to find resolution. And this is something I like to say it's really funny. I used to, when I started at the VA, the veteran had to pay for his own meal and he couldn't make a phone call. So I fought for veterans to get their meals. So now the government pays for their meals, and that's not me by myself, but I was a warrior for this. And so they couldn't make a phone call to call their family. So I met a guy named Bruce Perlin, and Bruce was selling phone cards. So I made him give me about 500 phone cards, 20 minutes for $5. And I would go in and I'd say, well, who would you like to talk to? How would you like to find resolution? They said, well, I can't call him. And I'd say, well, give me the phone number. And I'd take out one of Bruce's cards and I'd punch in all those numbers and I'd get the phone and I would hand it to him. You heard some of the most heart-wrenching moments between a man and his ex-wife, a man and his wife, his children. They can't get to him. First time he's probably talked to him in 5 or 6 years. Wow. The tears, you cannot stop the tears. But here's the other part, the other 50%. They get them on the phone and cuss them for all they're worth. You low down, good for nothing SOB. I've been waiting all my life to tell you this. I had one named Jason, and he went on and on. I know the person must have put the phone down. He cussed them, and because he'd been waiting to get this off his chest. And he got finished and hung the phone up. He never waited for the guy to say anything, Randy, and he took a couple of deep breaths, and he put his hands behind his head and laid back on the pillow, and he took one more breath, and he left this world. So you don't ever really know. But if you've been at this for as long as I've been at it, I love it. I love to be there. I love to bring comfort to the family because I can watch them and study them. And I love to be at the bedside of a person. I understand, and I can talk to them, but mostly I know how to listen. When a person is in transition, and this is for everybody who's listening, they don't give a damn what the weather is. Think about how many people come in and tell you about the weather. They're not going outside. They don't care. Right. So you have to structure open-ended questions so you can get them to think about their life. Like one of my favorite is this. What's your favorite 3 songs and why? And a person will stop and they start telling you the first kiss, the first dance, getting off the boat, coming home. And, you can watch them go back and relive the moments, and you kind of jazz it up. So, well, what were you wearing, or what was she wearing? And here's a grumpy old scrubby guy can remember what she had on. And then you watch them, and when I do it like this, Randy, I say, well, what's your favorite song? Well, I have the entire Time Life series from the 1930s all the way to today. So whatever song they say, I have it. But what I do is I say, wow, no kidding, well, tell me the story. And since I usually have it with me on my little MP3 player, I'll say, wow, but I won't play it. I'll wait till I come back to see them, and then I'll put the headsets on and I'll play it for them. Because if you cared enough to bring it back, it means you listened to them the first time. And that's more important than if you break it out and play it for them then. These are the little tricks that the Toilet Brigade teaches, because you got to celebrate that person's life.
Amazing. Walk us through, you mentioned Reginald. I believe you said Reginald, the 87-year-old veteran that walk us through that process with him and
the Battle of the Bulge. He came in just about 44, just about the time of the Battle of the Bulge. He was a fresh green, and then they were surrounded. The Battle of the Bulge, and guys were freezing to death. And then one company over from him were captured by the Germans and taken out in the forest and executed. And that one moment made no soldier want to surrender. They were not going to surrender. They were going to fight to the death. When you start to think about this, and that he laid in those foxholes, brand fresh recruit, cold, freezing and frostbite, and guys freezing overnight in the foxholes, and you watch that kind of stuff, and then you fight your way out when the Germans, they came back. They came back and attacked, and they were running and pulling back, and in the Ardennes, And when you start to tell those stories, he's first time he's probably told them, and he starts to tell them because I could ask you how important it is and listening. And I probably spent 3 days with him. And his family, his sisters were in their 80s, and they don't know what to do. And he doesn't want to go back to the hospital. He wanted to go home, so I went from the hospital home with him and to watch him and to watch what he's going through, to struggle to go to the bathroom and the issues that he's dealing with and the problems that he has. I could bring a moment of lightheartedness, about K rations and C rations and, the stuff that was in the packet and what wasn't in the packet and living in 1944 and living in 1945 and going to work for a company that manufactured a certain form of shoe or support shoe and listening to his career and listening to his kids. And I'm doing it like this. I'm really focused and I'm listening and I have my eyes and I'm locked eyes and I'm listening, and he's telling the story to someone who not only cares about his life, who wants to hear it. We all need that every day in our life. But when you're there, you need it the most. And most people don't know what to do. You just stand there and then you look at the choices of what you have to do or what you can do to help that person. And then you don't know how to implement it. Well, I know how to do it, and I teach people how to do it. And I have training facilities all over the country. I mean, I know how fast we're all going to enter this state, Randy. And I see it coming. And I see transition. We're living longer, but not putting enough life in living. We have to start living our lives, and we have to start not being afraid of all the fear-based reality, fight or flight. We live in constant fear. And, and with the way religion structures itself, we live in that fear when we're home by ourselves, sitting in our chair with our own machine gun. We're still afraid. We have to move past that. We are spiritual beings. And if you don't put that into context in your life, you lose the value of what you're doing here. Think of this. We were once physical, Newtonian mechanics. And if you had kidney failure, you got to say goodbye, and in the morning you would be gone. In 1929, we discovered penicillin, an X-ray. Madame Curie died of radiation poisoning, okay? But we discovered penicillin, bread mold, and we became chemical beings, empowered. We wanted to live forever. We created a whole world of uplifters and beta downlifters and antibiotics. So now we think we're immortal. And we want to live to be 150 and anti-aging. What kind of nonsense is that? But today,
I'm glad I chose 120.
Yeah, well,
it's not quite so bad.
If I can make it if I can make it till tomorrow, I'm gonna be happy. But when you start to look at it, we're now quantum beings. We're not chemical anymore. We're electrical beings. And when you look at yourself from the quantum mechanical position, as an electrical being, you begin to, for the first time in a scientific format, to see the energetic nature of your spirituality. I am so happy about quantum dynamics. We are electrical. It is proven and replicated that you are an electrical being. What is even funnier is looking at quantum mechanics, which is what makes your cell phone work. You can say, well, I don't believe in any of that. Well, have you got a cell phone? Well, if you have a cell phone, you not only believe in it, you're using it every day. So if you're not a quantum being, then that cell phone and how it works no longer exists. So how many people you think is going to not use a cell phone based on not believing that they're spiritual beings? That's where it'll come to. If you have a cell phone, and think for this. I mean, me and you had Dick Tracy's wrist radio. Today, I can take a picture of you and me. I can send it to a friend of mine in Russia in a bar at the Cosmo Hotel in Russia, and they have it in less than 2.5 seconds. No wire, no connection. I snap it, we send it, they look at it, they write us back. No wires, no nothing. You can't smell, taste it. You can't see it. Well, how can you not believe you're a spiritual being when we have invented a device that ethereally, which is how you would have to term the transmission of microwave, ethereally we're able to transmit across thousands and thousands of miles. We're even able to take a picture in space and do the same thing. So we have to get past the chemical side of our reality and move into the spiritual quantum side of our reality. Because once we accept that, we begin to focus on how the beauty of it. Think of it. We all have heard from in the 60s, the Beatles brought us Maharishi, whatever his name was. He's been on a mountaintop contemplating his navel, and he says we're all connected. Okay, well, okay, it's all right if you smoking some pot, you with the Beatles to be all connected and listen to Ravi Shankar, okay? All right, I believe anything in that kind of situation. But today, we have a $17 billion collider in Switzerland called CERN. And they had what was called the Higgs boson particle. And it was something somebody wrote on a chalkboard in 1947. A guy named Boson saw this equation, and he perfected it in 1961. And then a man named Higgs solved the equation and formulated that equation into what was a guess. It was a thought that this could exist in what was called dark matter. And the reason they called it dark matter is because once you get outside of our solar system, everything's black when you don't have the atmosphere to create refracted light. So it's called dark matter. And I always thought that was a really cool name for God, dark matter. But what did the Higgs boson particle prove, replicated 9 times at CERN in Switzerland? That we're all connected. This dark matter permeates every body. It connects it, and the planets of our universe float in this matter. So when you say, well, we're all connected, that's a scientifically replicatable scientific epic. It's no longer maybe I'm connected to you. You can prove it. But how many of us are accepting that whatever we're doing to everybody else in the universe, not just everybody in town, but everybody. I'm affecting somebody on some planet somewhere. They're also affecting me. I like that sense, Randy. I like that sense of connectivity and community, because if we don't find that quantum spiritual identity, Chicago will have more dead people this weekend than is rightfully Martin Luther King Day. 3,000 people got shot in Chicago on Martin Luther King's weekend. What in the world is happening to us? We're changing. I don't know if we're changing in the best ways and the right way, but nonetheless we are. I'm sorry I went on rambling, but I appreciate it.
No. It's fascinating. And talk to us about your concept of God.
Well, first, is there a God? Absolutely. Is that God funny? Absolutely. You know, when people say, that's a fire, I'm a jealous God. I want no graven images before me. All that stuff. Well, every time I've ever been over there, it was sensual. It was loving. It was a place of comfort. And I think, Randy, the thing that's so remarkable about it was I was a part of the whole place where I was, but I was aware that it was a part of me. I was aware of the divine, loving presence and feelings that surrounded me, but I was also aware that it was aware of me, which is something we all guess at in relationships with ourselves and other people. Do they like me? What do they think all about this? And there, you're cared about. You're loved. So is there a God? Absolutely. Has he got a beard and stuff, and is he a he? I'm not sure about that. I always relate to God as a woman, okay? Because that kind of love is, my wife has that kind of love for me, which is so undeserving. My parents did, my mother, but I feminize the divine. And I do it because when you've been through those places and you've been through these cities and these dimensions of spiritual reality, it's not overpowering. It's not threatening. It's not, I'm afraid of it. It's that I want to embrace it and be embraced by it. So is there a divine architect? Absolutely. Is it as fearful and as scary as we've all been told? No way. And all that stuff about hell, if anybody was going to hell, it had to have been me. But I have never been to hell in 3 adventures over there, so they missed their shot at me. I'm not doing any of that stuff, okay? But people have to understand the greatness of the divine operates in support of our mission. What you came here to do, you will do what you were sent to do, whether you know it or not. And a lot of times against yourself, you will do it. But what you chose to come here and do, this force supports you. We're not separated from. I have an absolute belief system that no one has ever left heaven. I don't believe you've left heaven. I believe you're still there. And why? Take a look at your body, for instance. What is your body? It's a big bag of water. You're just basically a water treatment plant. Okay? Think about it. Okay? You're made up of atoms, molecules, and cells. If you take an atom and you look at it under an electron microscope, it is 98% empty space. If you take a molecule and you look at it under a microscope, it's 99.2% empty space. If you take a cell and look at it under a microscope, it's 98.9% empty space. So if you took all the empty space out of everybody's body, you took all the atoms, all the empty space out of every atom, all the empty space out of every molecule, and all the empty space out of every cell of every body in the United States, the 320 million people, we would all fit in a regular size matchbox. Now, when you think about that as thinking you somebody and thinking you somewhere, and all you are is a big bag of wind, okay, empty space, and basically water, you get a grip on the fact that whatever you think is going on around you, you have somehow fooled yourself into believing it's real. And when, like with me, when I lifted out of this big bag of water, I was happy. Okay? And to get me back in that, you had to do some serious work to get me. And by the time I had the 3rd experience, Randy, I went through brain surgery. I was struck by lightning, open heart surgery, brain surgery, open heart surgery. When I went through brain surgery, it took them 41 hours in recovery to get me to wake up. There was no way I was coming back. You know, I'd already figured it out. After 2 trips over there, I knew where to hide. You know? So I was in recovery for 41 hours. 2 days I lay in the bed and they couldn't wake me up. Okay, I was in that state. They didn't know what was happening. I was fighting coming back. But, you know, like always, God wins. And I knew one day I'd get to meet you and this handsome man right here. So now my life is complete. If I pass out and fall out, please don't dial 911 till sometime tomorrow afternoon. Put me in that Dempsey dumpster and let everybody be cool.
Now, you talked about the black matter, but your books all have in the title the word light. And when you were going through that initial experience, I guess it was the same, probably similar.
Almost identical.
Talk to us about that light. What was it like? What did you actually see?
The light does not burn your eyes. Remember, I was blind. The lightning, the ball of fire that came through the room when the lightning struck, burnt my eyes, and I wore welder's glasses for a year. I mean, I couldn't see. I was blind, and I was burning, and I was on fire like battery acid, and I couldn't move. My tongue was swollen in my mouth. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. I was hurt. I couldn't see. Then all of a sudden, I lifted out of my body. I was in no pain. I could move, and I could see my lifeless body. And I was certainly glad to get out of that puppy, you know, because wherever I was now was a whole lot better than where I just left. But there is a radiance, and light is a good term, but there's a radiance about it. And when you understand that radiance, the light at the end of the tunnel, the light had a silvery blue hue to it, and it was always moving, and it was so beautiful. And so when I say the light didn't hurt my eyes, where when I came back I was blinded and I had to learn to see again, eat a lot of beta carotene and all the things necessary to build that back up. But when you start to really get looking at what the light means, look at what we just discovered in the last year. Your DNA sends signals in light. It's fiber optics. Your body is a fiber optic system. It transmits information in light. And when you look at cell conversation, which is called redox signaling now, you can record a conversation of cells talking to each other. And it transmits the information in light. Just like now fiber optic. You can have a copper wire 2 feet around, and you can send 1,000,000 times more information on a fiber optics the size of a pin, because of the compression and the nature of the ability and the speed at which light operates. So I think that light, as we conceive it of it, and the speed of light, 182,000 miles per second, as we conceive of that, then that is a great way to conceptualize how the universe works and how love, growth, understanding, and appreciation operate.
Wow. Well, let's do a little commercial for your books now. You mentioned DanionandKathryn.com, and that's Kathryn is, we didn't spell her out, Kathryn.
Right.
Okay.
And everything's on Amazon. If you go to our site and you order from our site, it's really Amazon fulfilling the order. We just get a couple of pennies for that.
So it doesn't matter where they go.
We don't care where you go. We make money, and we get the information out. And if you know someone who's going through this kind of situation and they need some support and they don't mind humor, you don't mind me making fun of it, then please look at our books and see our schedule, see where our schedules are and where we are. We're in Europe. We do Russia, Romania, I think the Czech Republic, because God finally made it to Eastern Europe. And so we go there, and then we have Los Angeles next month and New York. Then we come back to San Francisco. Then we go to Palm Beach, then to Europe. So
very interesting.
Come to the schedule. If you're anywhere near and you want to laugh about death and you want to have some really good jokes to tell all your people that's sick, come to see us.
Now, you've been on talk shows all over the world. I think you just mentioned you've been on Oprah 5 times. Mm-hmm. What are some of the other shows you've been on?
I've been on Dateline, Tonight Show, CBS shows, CBS News, every talk show, Dateline, every talk show, Learning Channel, Discovery Channel, Unsolved Mysteries. Just go on Amazon and punch me up. There's probably the best one was Joan Rivers.
Really?
I was on Joan Rivers, but I've been on every one of those shows because I think people need a perspective about the truth about what really happens when so-called we're going to die. But I tell everybody in closing, no one ever dies. So what that means is forever just got a lot longer. And you're going to be a long, long time.
Well, let me ask you one quick question. We're almost out of time, but what's the most fascinating question that you've ever been asked in an interview? Other than the ones I've asked you, of course.
Well, yours were the best ones. But the most fascinating questions are people who want to debunk. I love debunkers. I love fundamentalist ministers and psychiatrists. They are my favorite audience. They're my favorite interviewers because they're trying to convince me of something that I know is absolutely true, and they just believe what they think. So some of the best questions are people trying to debunk.
Well, it is so fascinating to have you on here, and
thanks for having me, man.
We could go on for 4 or 5 to 6 hours, I think. And
have me back.
We will definitely have you back. And I understand you have some new products coming out soon, so we'll have you back to talk about those, some health products and some things like
Yeah,
that.
it's
So
health and water.
absolutely.
How to preserve, take care, and empower yourself as a water bag.
Great. Well, we'll look forward to that, and we'll see you next week, same time, same station. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.